morning, Pierre. Will you tempt him with True North?
Sorry, with who?
True North.
True North.
This past week, we saw a church burning in Canada, a tragic incident at a church in Michigan, and over 100 incidents of church burning or vandalism since 2021 in Canada.
Yes.
What do you make of the sectarian strife seen targeting towards Christians? Do you think the government's doing enough to combat this, and what would you do?
I think it's terrible. No, the government is not doing enough, and I would do a lot more. So let's recap where we are. 100 churches have been burned. You hear almost nothing from the Liberal government about this. Christians may be the number one group that is victims of hate-based violence. But of course, it's not politically correct to say that. 100 terrorist attacks against Canadian churches. This anti-Christian hate has got to stop. We've seen with this Liberal government is the number of things they've done to allow this. One, they've separated people into groups. Their ideology seeks to identity politics divides one group against another, and then we're surprised when that leads to violence. Two, the Liberals have reduced criminal penalties for arson, so people are not afraid to get caught burning things down anymore. And three, they have failed to put law enforcement resources where they belong, which is to say going after criminals rather than targeting farmers, duck hunters, and professional sports shooters. So Conservatives would take exactly the opposite approach. We would bring in mandatory prison sentences for extortionists. We would crack down on hate crime, which is more than doubled under the Liberals, with tougher laws that throw criminals in prison. We used to make sure that the foreign criminals that are in our country illegally are kicked out of Canada. And we would redirect resources away from banning duck hunters, farmers, and sports shooters towards more police and border services that will keep all Canadians safe. Because frankly, Canadians of all faiths, including Christians, deserve to worship in peace.
I like how he calls them terrorist attacks. Like, I'm happy that we're starting to call them what they actually are. Every church burning is an act of domestic terrorism. In Canada, we have to start looking at who is perpetrating these acts of domestic terrorism. It is Antifa and activist groups that whip crazy people into doing crazy things. And then society is left holding the bag because there is no punishment for these people. There is no punishment for these people. There is no expectation that they're going to have to pay a price for this. It's a get out of jail free card.
Right.
It's nuts. But that we're calling them terrorists, good. We should call them terrorists because they are.
100%. 100%. If this stuff were happening in Nigeria, the Liberals would be up in arms. You know?
Right.
If this stuff were happening in Russia, they would be up in arms. But because it's happening here, under their watch, and actually enabled by their watch, because we've just heard about the reduced sentences, but we also know that this is a deeply anti-Christian government. They have gone after pro-life organizations.
Defunded
them. And these are not organizations that they're crisis pregnancy counseling centers. Which I think is, if you are on the left, crisis pregnancy centers are a deeply feminist thing, in that we tell women and girls faced with an unplanned pregnancy that they can do it. You can do this. We'll be here to help. But the feminists of the left and the Justin Trudeau government are there to say, no, you can't. And there's only one way out of this. And
abort your child.
Get rid of that baby. And so, look, my unplanned pregnancy is 27. Okay.
Mine is 30.
Yeah, you can do this.
Yeah, you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah. If Sheila Gunn, Reid, and Lise, Merle cobbled a life from themselves out of an unanticipated young pregnancy. How old were you, Sheila Gunn, Reid?
19.
I was 17. was 17 years old. So if we can cobble a life together with our two little guys, like underfoot all the time on a hip, just doing life.
Going to work in school. Yep.
Any woman can. And as a matter of fact, that experience with the first baby was so good, was so fulfilling for me that I went on to have 5 more. Okay. I loved it. I loved every part of it right from the very beginning. And it's because there were people that found me and said, you can do this. Of course you can do this. This is what women do and have for since the beginning of time. Of course you can. And they did.
Yeah. And going back to the liberal attacks on this, like they made summer camps that were run by Christians, but also not run by Christians, but just were not willing to sign away their values to qualify for the summer jobs grant while they gave it to terrorist linked organizations. We've seen what the liberals think of Christians. Justin Trudeau, the Catholic, as I said, there are a lot of things that self-proclaimed Catholics do that are not within the catechism. And Justin Trudeau is a great example of that. He wouldn't sign the nomination papers of anybody who is pro-life.
That is insane.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely upside down and backwards. Like in what? Oh, sorry. My kids, sorry. My
lunchtime.
Sorry.
Okay, let's go to, I've got, it's okay. It's lunchtime. Let's go to Larry Brock, who the Eastern Boomers have robbed us of being our AG, our justice minister. Larry Brock could be that for us. But you took him from us, Eastern Boomers. He goes off on no mention of Christianity in Bill C-9, while communities beg for protection from arsonists and firebombers. Let's hear from Larry while Lise sorts out her hungry children.
And let's not forget, there's absolutely zero reference to Christianity. Christianity is under attack in this country. I don't know what was funny about Christianity being under attack, but nevertheless, Madam Speaker, churches have been burned, Christian churches have been burned at an alarming rate. Between May of 2021 and December of 2023, 33 Christian churches have been burned in this country, with the vast majority being arson-based. For years, communities cried out for protection. What they got instead from their federal Liberal government was silence. And now, years late, the government has tabled a bill that, quite frankly, feels more like a political gesture than a serious plan.
So Bill C-9 is the amendments to the criminal code that would protect places of worship. It's to amend the criminal code around hate propaganda, hate crime, and access to religious or cultural places. But they drafted this entire piece of legislation without even acknowledging that Christians have been the targets of vandalism, murder in our churches in North America, and desecration of our holy sites, smoke bombs when they're trying to have worship services. They drafted this entire piece of legislation without ever even mentioning who the targets have been. It's more about Jews, and fair enough, and mosques.
Yeah, that's exactly it. No, I like the conservatives. I like the conservatives' plan to address hate crimes, to bring in tougher laws that result in prison sentences, and for mandatory prison sentences, because this whole because the way that we are letting them out on bail, the people that do this, or just jail and bail, like catch and release, obviously isn't working.
By connecting job seekers to work simulation and training, Work First Alberta helps people change their story.